this is amazing. Welcome all. I'm Madeline. My name is not C4AI Events, contrary to popular belief. And I work here at Cohere for AI as our operations and community lead. I'm really excited to walk through today's presentation with you. We've got a great agenda and some great speakers to help me out in sharing more about the Scholars Program with all of you today. So a quick note before we start, you found the chat, it's working well, keep it up. We'll be engaging with you in that space. But I also want to highlight the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We're going to leave a lot of today's call to address your questions. You'll see it's hard for us to keep up with the chat, but the Q&A is structured in a bit more of an organized way. So if you have questions that you want us to address or answer, please put them in the Q&A box, not the chat. This will just help us stay organized and make sure we can address everything that you're hoping to learn today and that we give as robust information as possible. So I think we should get started. We'll be joined by Sarah Hooker, who's the head of Cohere for AI, along with three of our current scholars. If they can come to the onstage area, that would be great from the backstage. Here's John, hey. And the others will show up now. Hey, Akanksha. Hi, and Aomi Day. Look at that. Okay, this is great. And I'm sure Sarah's joining in just 1 minute, but I'll start us off to make the best use of our time and to make sure that, yeah, we've got plenty of time for your questions at the end. John, Akanksha, Aomi Day, you can see my slides, yeah? Nice. Let's get to it. Okay, here we are. So I've just told you this part. There's Sarah and me on operations, and then we're very fortunate to have Ariel, who's in the backstage of this call, who will be here to help out with any technical issues and answer your questions in the chat as they come up. And then you'll hear from three of our current scholars as well today. So the basic flow for how today's event will go is we'll start by having an overview of Cohere for AI and what our research lab is and what the goals of our research lab are. After that, we'll speak specifically about the Scholars Program. It's a unique kind of fellowship, research, internship opportunity. So we want to make sure you have a really good understanding of what it is and particularly what the goals of the program are, because I think it's worthwhile to keep this in mind as you prepare your applications. We're looking to advance ML scientific breakthroughs in a really specific way through this program. And so you can structure your application to reflect some of those goals, I hope. Then we'll dive into the application process, the various elements and stages of the application, along with some tips and resources for making the most of your application. And then, like I said, we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A, and we'll all be on hand to answer your questions from the different points of view of those facilitating the program. But also, we're so lucky to have three members of the current cohort here who can speak to the actual experience of being a scholar. So I think that'll be a really rich period of the call. But with that, I'm going to hand things over to Sarah. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see everyone.
We've got
I
people.
get to see so many people joining. This is super impressive.
It's remarkable. Yeah, I think we've got every continent represented on this call, which is pretty cool.
Oh, amazing. Okay, why don't we kick off? Do you want to, can I control the slides or do you want
Um,
to?
I'm happy to just toggle them if you just want to let me know when to.
Oh, I think there's quite a few though. Do you mind just
Oh,
pinging me the link and then I'll just perfect. Yeah. So I think today I'm going to kick off by sharing a little bit about the lab and then also a little bit about the program, and then we'll open up and Madeline's going to lead through some of the actual logistics of the application process. And then John, Akansha, and Yamade, we can keep it much more free flowing and kind of do a discussion Q&A. So please do share questions throughout in the Q&A. Madeline probably already mentioned this, but we are going to, oh, perfect. Okay. We are going to get to them with the second half of the discussion, and I'll move fairly quickly through this part, so it will be nice. Okay, I'm going to share this. Share, perfect slideshow. Excellent. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I'm here to share a little bit about the lab, and this is a real pleasure because I think the Scholars Program is a huge part of how we think about doing, top tier research. So our mission is to work on breakthroughs. So our goal is to produce state-of-art research and to drive forward the field, but it's also to change how research is done. So we're a research lab, and actually we're one of the few hybrid labs. So we have this industry lab component where we have a full-time research staff and full-time scholars. And then we also have this open science component. So we collaborate a lot outside with many different institutions. And you may have heard some of our work. So we release a lot of work on areas like multilingual, poor properties of generalization, safety. Also, I would say efficiency is another big bet on our lab. And recently, for example, we released a series of state-of-art models with Aya release. So actually, John, Akansha, and Ayomide worked on multilingual projects this year. And so they'll probably be able to tell you a little bit about that. And they worked on different aspects of them. So like optimization, safety, and kind of really interesting kind of preference training dynamics. So you'll hear a little bit about that, but that kind of gives you a flavor of some of the things we're doing in the lab. And we have three key components. So we have our research, which is really at the edge of ML. So we work on large scale problems. So typically focused on NLP, multimodal, but really the kind of one of the key attributes of doing a scholars program is you get access to a lot of compute, you get access to industry scale resources, and so you can work on these really large scale problems. And we also just collaborate a lot. So I was a great example of that, where we did a lot of cross-institutional collaborations. And then also our leadership series. So we do a lot of work on safety and policy, where we try and think about how our models are deployed into the wider setting. This is actually a slide which speaks well to the impact of our lab. So we have research collaborations that have involved over 100 different academic partners, 40 institutions. We've launched 15 open science initiatives. So these are fairly large scale, including things like Aya, but also, MMLU evaluations, efficiency collaborations, and then we presented work at top tier conferences. So ICLR, ICML, NeurIPS, ACL, EMNLP. This is a special week for the lab because we just received a Best Paper Award at ACL. So this is really special and kind of a testament to all the work that's been done over the last 2.5 years. Oh, this is lovely. We have even more lovely slides. Okay, I won't spend too long on this one because I think, we've maybe conveyed the idea, but yeah, we do a lot of different work in these areas. And our goal is to produce top tier research. So we also have this open science component, as I mentioned. So many of you might actually be in the open science community. And if you aren't, honestly, that's a good way to get to understand the character of the lab. You'll meet a lot of our staff there. So we have over 3,500 members across 127 countries. Scholars typically work with full-time staff members, but there's still opportunities to present your work in the open science community and to connect in different ways. Scholars Program overview. So Madeline, I think I'm passing to you after this section, right? So, okay, perfect. So the Scholars Program, this is the third cohort. So the second cohort, you can see John Akansha Yomade here. So we welcomed our second cohort. So this was 6 talented research scholars from across the globe. And our research scholars are from Brazil, Germany, the US, Nigeria, India. And our focus is on global talent. So to find the best rising stars across the world and to support them in their goal of entering the research space. And so that's one of the reasons why this is remote first. We're trying to support talent where it is. And that's one of the reasons we really make an effort to facilitate people participating across the world. And the structure of the program is that you're paired with a project during the program. So Madeline will talk a little bit about that, but the final step of being accepted is actually a project match step, because we want to understand, do you like the project? Are you aligned with it? And this is some of the work that came out of this cohort. So here's John's paper. Our layout chef can speak many languages. And then Louisa's paper, who's not here, but she did this fantastic paper on LLM-C, LLM-2. It's all about the role of synthetic data. Akansha's paper here, multilingual alignment prism, and Virat also worked on this IO23. So these are the goal is really to accelerate your journey into research and to work on something which is really has potential to drive the field as a whole forward. So often the scholars publish and have the chance to share their results. And these are the mentors. So we bring in top researchers from across both Cohere, Cohere for AI, and these are the mentors from this year's cohort. We had other mentors for last year's cohort. It depends upon the project. So typically for reinforcement, for example, we'll bring in people who have experience with reinforcement, and for safety, the same. So this is a really nice chance to work with extremely experienced researchers in a very specialized field. So why the Scholars Program? So to be honest, we're the only top tier lab that does this. I'm actually very proud of that. I think that the most top tier labs, you have to have completed your full journey. You have to have many different publications, a very high kind of number of citations and a PhD before you can even enter a top tier lab. So we are subverting the normal criteria by doing this. I would say part of that is a bet that when you open the door to super talented individuals, it's a rare chance to find incredible talent and to really support that. It's also a huge endeavor on both sides, I would say, because you're kind of embarking on this massive journey. So I think that one of our bets is we want to make this the space where you can focus solely on research and on this dream of doing research at a top tier lab. And it's probably going to be one of the most intense experiences you've ever had. It's probably going to be one of the most challenging experiences you've ever had, but we're here with you for it. And that is our commitment. And I think one of the things that I'm very proud of is that we offer that door, mainly because no other labs do. And there's no other real opportunities for people to join industry labs this early in their career. And so with that, I think also comes this really meaningful kind of intense moment where you can pursue your dreams. So that's part of why we really commit to having super supportive mentorship. If you're in it, we're in it with you. But we also really make it a paid opportunity because we realize that this is going to be a super high commitment, and that we want to make sure that all you need to focus on is your dream of pursuing research. And so it's a paid opportunity, it's competitive pay with industry, and you're supported by an in-house team. So you're given access to compute, you're given access to resources, and you're given access to mentorship. So you're going to have mentors from day one. And yeah, this program is really difficult, but it's that, I think that it's the type of difficulty that is also super meaningful as people find this door where they can then pursue what they want to do for the rest of their career. And so it really tests, do you like research? Do you want to do this? And do you want to pursue it? Yeah, so maybe we can go to the next slide. So this is how we're different. So our focus is on really, we don't have degree requirements. So we actually, I think if you already have a PhD in many different publications, you might not be the right fit for this program. You might be a fit for one of our full-time roles, in which case I really encourage you to apply for that or to apply for a staff position on the machine learning side. We consider applicants regardless of whether they publish or not. If you publish, great. I think that's really nice support for your interests. If you haven't, that's also totally okay. Like that's how we've designed the program. And this year we had some people who had published, we had some people who hadn't published. So for example, Louisa had published previously. I think John had a few papers where he was middle author on, so he had experience doing research. So it's different for every person. And so I think that we actually had a variety, but we also had quite a few scholars who hadn't published before. Um, and I think that what we're looking for is your curiosity. So we're looking for how, that this is and also what this moment means in your overall goals. Like, so, because we have so few spots and this is such a competitive program, most of all, I think what is exciting is to hear from you, like, what does this mean to you? Like, why is this your shot and why do you want it? And like, why is this your moment now? And that for me is probably the most important, is to understand how this fits into your overall goals. So I think use a personal statement. We'll talk about that later, but use it to speak to that. Okay, let's go to the next one, and then we can start getting to all the questions and introduce all the scholars. So I will see how to approach application. So do you want me to drive this, Madeline? And then you're taking on this, right?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, so I appreciate how in the chat Iomide put very intense smiley face. I think that sums it up well. We're looking for people who are excited and smiling about this intensity, but I think the application process reflects some of this as well. So there's three main stages. We're currently in the first stage, the personal statement and video submission. There's actually just 2 weeks left in this phase. So we've looking for a quick turnaround on these. Then those who make it through this first stage will be invited to submit a take-home challenge, and then the final stage will be virtual interviews. Next slide. Yeah, so the personal statement is really an opportunity for you to let us know who you are and what it is you're hoping to achieve. This is a chance to get personal with your interests and your goals in 500 words or less. And please adhere to these word counts. It's a chance for you to share also your experience, what you have been up to so far, successes and failures if you've run into any blockers or things that have halted you in your journey. Share these as well. We really want to get to know who you are in this part. Next slide. And so some tips for this are to be specific and be personal. We're anticipating quite a few applications for this role, and we want ones that stand out, ones that are addressing someone's personal story. So this is a real chance for you to dive into that. Also, give yourself enough time to draft it. Today is a great day to start drafting your personal statement. This will also give you time to proofread and ask a friend or advisor to look over it. I always recommend asking someone who you know will give you meaningful feedback, not just sing your praises. Someone who can check for errors, but also challenge you to get more specific and share details that will be meaningful. Next slide. We have this resource document that Ariel can, oh, it's already in the chat, so you can find it there from Ariel. And we've got this really strong example of a personal statement from Areva. You can read the statement in full in the resource document, but on the next slide, we talk about what makes this such a strong statement. So if we go to the next slide, what's strong about this statement, if you have a time to read it over, is that it's really clear and really direct. It's not speaking in abstract or generalizations. It's super specific to both Areva's experience and what she's hoping to achieve. And it's specific to the program that she's applying to. You know, there's all sorts of internships and programs out there that you could be applying to. We want to know why it is that it's this one that you think will be the next meaningful step in your journey. It also makes the reviewer's life easy. It's very clearly laid out and kind of takes us on a journey. So on the next slide, we're going to move on and talk about the video response. This year, there is one specific prompt we'll ask everyone to respond to in a 5-minute video. And that prompt is choose a paper published by our lab and suggest directions in which it could be further expanded. So you can find all our papers on the website. Choose one that appeals to you. You know, this is not a trick question. We're not hoping that you're going to choose one specific paper. They're all equally available for your selection, and you've just got 5 minutes. So I encourage you to use this time as well as you can. What's great about this is we're already very familiar with these papers, so you don't need to spend the 5 minutes summarizing the paper or introducing it in any way. We're very familiar with the work coming out of the lab. So off the top, you can just briefly say which paper it is you're doing, perhaps why it is you've chosen it, if there's a specific part of it that appeals to you or to your research interests. But then spend the majority of the time answering the prompt, how it could be further expanded. Now, many research papers have this section that's, you know, this opportunity for further inquiry. That's already in the paper. Those are areas we've already thought of. We are looking for you to expand on some ideas on where it could be taken further, and what's another project that could potentially be built off of this, or what's a way that this work could be improved upon or dig further into it. A few other tips for preparing your video. If you'd like to use slides or presentation tools to help convey your thoughts, feel free to do so. If that will help you get your point across. And also, it's always beneficial if you take time to set up your video in a space that's quiet, free from distractions, free from people walking around behind you. This will just help us absorb your answer in a much more clear way. And then always watch your video back. Make sure the audio is clear. And then very importantly, make sure that the sharing settings on the link for it are open access. So we accept any number of links. It could be on Google Drive or on a private YouTube link or any such platform. Just make sure the sharing settings allow anyone with the link to view it, as it will be shared by multiple people in our team as we review applications. So double check this one, send it to a friend, make sure they can open it. We really appreciate you taking care on this. Next slide. And then the next stage of the process, stage 2, will be a take-home challenge. So we'll send this out all at once in mid-September to people who advance to this stage so that everyone has equal amount of time to work on the take-home challenge. And this is a real chance for you to showcase your engineering and problem-solving skills. And I think what we're hoping to see in this part is how you approach a problem. That's what we're hoping to get insight to. So you might be identifying bugs and getting to work with the code directly, and this will test your ability to generate code for a specific research area, and attempt an optional challenge question at the end if you're feeling up for it. But more information will be sent out about that to those who make it to stage 2, the take-home challenge. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, and then after you submit your application, everything received by August 30th will be reviewed, and we're reviewing them as they are received. But the takeout challenge will only be sent out all at once in mid-September to give everyone the same amount of time to work on it. Then after the take-home challenge, those who progress will move into an interview stage in October and early November. And we anticipate being able to make some offers in mid-November with the January 2025 program start date. Ariel, maybe you can put the exact dates of the program in the chat. And the program this year runs almost exactly 6 months until mid-July. Next slide. Okay, great. So I'm really happy at this point to hand it over to some of our current cohort of scholars. Maybe each of you can introduce yourself briefly, where you're from, and a little bit about your research. Ayomide, do you want to take it away?
Oh, yeah, sure thing. I don't know if I'm audible enough. Am I audible enough?
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. I'm Ayomide and from Nigeria, and I'm currently working on a project around routing to different experts for multilingual. So the idea is if you have different models that are good at different languages, how do you choose what model to actually sample data from?
Excellent. And Iomide is in a real crunch time with his research. So we really appreciate you taking time today to join us in the middle of that. Akanksha, would you like to get next?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Akanksha, and I'm based in New York, but I'm from India. As part of the Research Scholar program, I worked on multilingual safety, where we tried to make language models robust against cultural and universal harms across multiple different languages. And we also released a preprint about the same a couple months ago, the link for which I can share in the chat. But yeah, super excited to be here and answer any and all questions that might be helpful.
Yes, share a link to your research, Akanksha. Great idea. Yeah, I think it's great for people to check out the work that you've all been able to accomplish in such a short period, having just started in January yourselves. Nice. Okay, and then John, over to you.
Hey everybody, my name is John. I'm currently based in Los Angeles, California. And yeah, I'm a research scholar on the C4AI team. The research I've worked on is on multilinguality as well as reinforcement learning from human feedback and the intersection of the two. So earlier I've worked on IA 23, so improving the state of the art in multilingual language modeling, as well as another project on multilingual preference tuning or RLHF, so improving the last stage typically of training large language models and how we can improve that for massively multilingual large language models.
Excellent. John, you should also share a link to your research. Yeah, congrats to both of you on getting this out. Nice. Okay, I think now we move to the main event. I see there's already 30 questions in the Q&A. This is great. Let's try to get through as many of these as possible. Like I said, if you can keep questions in the Q&A, that'll just help us stay organized. And scholars, Sarah, I encourage you to jump in on the ones that interest you. But to kick things off, maybe I'll highlight this one from Julie. Could you talk more about the difficulty of the program? What are some of the things scholars have found challenging? Learning new concepts, hours spent working, partnering with new people, etc. Who wants to give a stab at this one? Ayomide, you were the one who put very intense in the chat. Maybe I'll put it to you.
Yeah, I think one of the first thing that was quite challenging for me was communication, because I've always had to work on problems myself, but now you have to communicate a lot with people you're working with, and also picking up new concepts, a lot of concepts, learning from the scholars themselves and also from the mentors. So I would say learning new concepts and communication were the two big challenges for me. Yeah.
John or Akanksha, do you want to add anything to this? What have you found challenging?
Yeah, I would say that maybe the fast-paced nature of it is also pretty fun to, I guess, like adapt to, just because things happen very, very fast, even though it feels like, oh, it's plenty time to onboard well or slowly or take your time with it, but everything goes by super, super quickly. And yeah, it's you gotta ramp up quick.
Yeah, I'd say for me, a big challenge was just the nature of my project, since I guess my background is more in the RLHF side of things, but I was not as familiar with a lot of the multilingual research. Like a lot of my knowledge was a lot more surface level. So getting quickly acquainted with a lot of the recent research on multilinguality was something I think that was challenging, and I spent a lot of time trying to ramp that up quickly, reading a lot of papers and learning a lot more about during the beginning of the program.
Nice. Sarah, do you want to add to this, or are there questions popping up that you're wanting to address?
Yeah, I think that was well said. I think that so there's a few components that make this a challenging program. One is that it's an engineering at scale. So typically, oh, sorry, I'm going nuts with this slide.
Take
I
them
think
down at this point,
because we
probably.
do experiments at scale, there's a engineering component. So getting used to the infrastructure. So, and then I also think you're typically diving headfirst into a topic, and the whole goal is to be the first door. So everyone's jumping into topics that, by definition, probably they're not an expert in. And so, but I think our promise is we're there with you. So we'll be there every step of the way. And I think also part of that is I would say, even for the engineering at scale, once you have your infrastructure set up, it gets easier. Like once you have your experimental setup, but this does make for a more challenging program. And I think that combination is also what makes it kind of special, because there's not other programs like it. Yeah, hopefully that helped answer. Maybe we'll do some rapid fire ones. Let's see, let me bring up the Q&A. So do you see another one, Madeline?
Yeah, there's some here about the field of research. So people are highlighting that there's a lot of NLP topics covered. Could we speak briefly to what areas of research will be covered in the next cohort and how scholars impact the research direction, or what that relationship is?
We do have a lot of NLP topics. We also have a lot of multimodal increasingly. So we do ML at the frontier. So it's not just NLP. I think this year it has been a lot of NLP topics and a lot of multilingual topics. This is also because of where our infrastructure is built out, and also because of where we have mentorship expertise. But I think in general, even now we have multiple multimodal projects going on, and we just had another scholar, Oliver, who joined, who's doing a multimodal project. And next year we'll have multiple multimodal projects. And so really, I would apply, even if, NLP, that you may have a variety of interests. I will also say we don't expect people to have significant experience with NLP. That's part of the beauty of this program. So for example, some of the scholars had experience, like John had experience with NLP with RLHF preference training, but not with multilingual. And so there's always a balance, but while it does help, we don't preclude candidates who don't have that experience.
Excellent. And are you able to see the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, Sarah?
No, let me see. I'm not. Can other people see it?
Yeah, if you stop sharing the slides.
Okay, that's probably why. Oh, now I do. Excellent. Okay, I was like, okay, so did the fellows last year convert to FT positions? So last year, yes, we had one fellow who converted. I will say this is not a conversion position, like this is a training program. So we try and support people wherever they go, but it is a 6-month program. And so we don't make a commitment about that. But yes, last year, one of the fellows scholars converted. So for students interested in pursuing a PhD as a pathway for getting a reference letter, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's one of our main goals, is that this should be a launch pad for whatever you want to do, whether it's another industry lab, whether it's PhD programs. I think that's our goal, is to support what you want to do. So let me ask one maybe for all the scholars. Let me go down. So, there's a lot of questions asking, is the topic language models only? Yeah, I think I answered that. So it will be primarily NLP and multimodal. I think that just plays to the types of topics our lab is invested in, but we also within that have fairly general topics like safety and also efficiency. So I am seeing some duplication, and okay, day in the life. So who would like how does collaboration work for a remote first team? I think that's a really nice question for all the scholars to weigh in on. So what is a day in the life for everyone?
I can go ahead. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, Akansha, you go.
Well, I mean, I feel like a day in the life of a scholar depends on what part of the program you're in. Maybe if you're closer to a conference deadline, then it's a little bit more intense, or actually a lot more intense than your usual other days or weeks. But I guess like from at the start of the program, it'd be a lot of like literature review and like reading a bunch of papers, getting ramped up, and getting started with like your experimental setup. A little further, you I guess like start running experiments. So there's all of that, a lot of like back and forth with getting the experiments right and doing all those sorts of things to have everything in place. And then maybe I guess like once you're closer to a paper deadline, you start writing or filling your overleaf, uh, getting plot visualizations up, a lot of like discussions about how to frame the paper and stuff like that. And maybe once the deadline is through, it's a little bit more relaxed again. So I guess it just depends on what stage of the program you're in. But yeah, that's typically my timeline. But John, you should go ahead.
Yeah, I think Akanksha is very right that I guess what you're doing day to day can vary a lot. Especially if you like have done, I think, other, tech company roles before where I think, most of the days are a lot more similar. In research, I think there's a lot more variation in terms of what you're doing, depending on, like Akanksha said, where in the project you are. So during the beginning stages of a project, you're going to be spending a lot more time reading papers, getting familiar with the existing literature that is related to your project, and also scoping out and writing documents about what your plan is for the actual project and what kind of experiments you want to run, what hypotheses you have, and how you're going to test them. And then once you get to the actual implementation phase where you're trying to actually implement the code and infrastructure you need to run these experiments, you're probably going to be doing a lot more engineering. It's going to look a lot more like software engineering. Um, and then later on in the project, you'll be running your experiments, you'll get some kinds of results. And depending on how those turn out, you might, go back and reformulate what kind of experiments you want to run. If they turn out positive and things go well, eventually you'll start moving into a phase where you're spending a lot more time writing about your results and getting to a publication, especially towards a conference submission deadline. So it varies a lot day to day. I will also say, you're often not just working by yourself as a research scholar. You're spending a lot of time collaborating with your mentors, so research scientists who are on the team, as well as your peers as well. The other scholars in the program have been a very good resource to just kind of talk about ideas, debug code, all sorts of different ways that your peers can help you. So you're definitely not doing this all by yourself.
Yeah, it's great. Ayame, did you want to weigh in? I have another question that I flagged. Let's see. It was, I think the question was, what's one thing you would want to know before the program, which I thought was a good question for everyone to weigh in on. I think between brackets, it was, how should I prepare?
Oh, okay. I think not to sound too perfect, but I think I kind of prepared for everything possible, right? Before now, my background is in computer vision, and had to do a lot of study in NLP, particularly transformers and everything recent to be able to apply to the program. So I think I kind of did my own homework on that. I was I think I kind of prepared for a year because I saw the first cohort, but didn't apply. So I had a year to prepare for this cohort. So yeah.
That's great. Anyone want to add on to that?
Yeah, I guess in terms of preparation, I would just say that brush up on all the fundamental skills, because I think that's all that the application process really tests. You don't necessarily need to be an expert, like Sarah already mentioned in NLP. Yeah, you just need to be able to demonstrate that you'd be able to hold your weight during the program, and that you do have the skills that are quite basic to carrying out research in this space. So yeah, I mean, nothing to be afraid of, but just do your best.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to also mention, unless you wanted to, I wanted to shoot off some quick answers to other questions that have been coming up. So one is, do you scholars meet staff in person? So Akansha, for example, is in the New York office. So definitely if you're close to one of our offices in New York, San Francisco, Toronto, London, you can work in person. And definitely that's a really nice way to connect. We also have we're really an opportunity which we call Accelerate Week, where everyone comes together and has a lot of socials and is in person. And typically we plan that so that we can try to avoid any visa issues. So everyone knows kind of at the beginning, and no matter where you are in the world, everyone flies in. So that's either in Toronto or London or SF, one of our big offices again. And that way you meet also your wider mentors. So just wanted to share that as one of the ways in which we really connect people. The other question that I'm getting is, this idea of how, what are the upcoming projects? So typically as you go through the process, I've kind of given a wider field, but as you go through the process as well, you're going to have a project match interview beforehand, but you'll get a feel from our papers, the type of areas that we normally publish in. Like, it's not like we do a total change every year. There's still going to be projects on efficiency, on safety. There'll be projects on multilingual, most likely multimodal. So there'll be core technical projects, which are on a variety of projects, including general performance, optimization, as well as safety. And so you can expect a variety. And then we'll take that into account as you write your applications. If you share what you're interested in, when we do project matching for those in that final round, that's an opportunity where you actually get to hear what the project is, and you get to say, no, not as interesting, or this is interesting. Yeah. Okay. Any other, John, Akansha, do you spot any, or Yomade, do you spot any questions you want to answer live? So if you're a student, I see this one from William. If you're a student on a gap year semester, are you still eligible for the program? So you have to not be full-time, so you can't have any student commitments. If you are 100% have no course obligations, yes, you can be considered. But I see a few questions here about, can I do it alongside a degree program? Unfortunately, no, and that's mainly because this is a full-time role, and that's why we treat it as a paid role, because it requires full-time commitment. It would be very difficult to do it alongside a degree program. And so, yeah, feel free to shout out if people see one that they want to take live.
I'd be curious you about what the time zone is and where scholars are based. Our scholars
Yeah.
are based around the world, and I think this is a huge strength of the program. And again, we'll be looking for candidates based around the world. There's typically a few hours of the day where we try to overlap our schedules to have meetings and collaborate live. For me in Toronto, it's around 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern time. So you can convert this to your time zone to see what that might be. But it is a strength of our program that we work with you from wherever it is you're based.
Hey, Kasia, did you want to weigh in? Did you spot something?
Yeah.
Hey.
There's actually a question that says, oh, Sarah mentioned having non-traditional backgrounds. What background do John, Akanksha, and Ayomide have? How do I know if I have the right background? So I think that would be a very appropriate question to answer, and maybe I can start. Well, I do come from a machine learning background. I did a bunch of different machine learning internships during undergrad, and then I went to grad school also to study the same, and pursued several different internships in that space. So my background, I think, does rightly fit, which is a great example for someone who comes from a similar background. But I do know there are others who have great backgrounds currently in the program working on the project. So yeah, excited to hear what John and Ayomide have to say.
Yeah, I will say I did do an undergrad and master's at UCLA, and I did some machine learning research and some machine learning internships before. But I would say that it's not like a requirement for the program, and I know a lot of the other scholars that don't have as much of a machine learning background that are doing really amazing work and are very capable and contributing very important research. So I would say, yeah, it's not like a requirement or something that would prevent you from participating in the program.
Yeah, so I think for me, I have the more non-traditional background. Um, I did my BS in mechanical engineering, then transitioned into computer vision right after school, then now NLP. So I think I'm a good example to everybody who wants to apply who has a non-traditional background, right? So yeah.
Yeah, this is great. I'm gonna quickly answer two more, and then I'm gonna pose another one to the scholars. So who should apply to research scholar positions versus applying directly for a job at Cohere? I hinted at this, but really, if you already have a PhD in machine learning, if you already have many different publications, you're probably a better candidate for full-time roles. I think this is really aimed at rising stars, and the whole point is to be the first door for, exposure to an industry lab. So that answers that. So that's from Vishnu. And then so Prasanta, should I mention papers in a non-ML area and not first order? Yeah, it gives us a sense of your background and your interests. So I think that's really interesting. Cleo asks, which might be a good one for the scholars, asks, what are the skills you found most useful to you when doing research? So technical or soft skills. Who wants to take a go at that one?
I can go ahead. I think both are equally important, just because like your technical skills will help you get through the program, do the required, I guess, like experiments, implementations, and everything that is required to carry out research. But in case you're not able to communicate that research well, and communicate what you're doing well on your end, then I think it will be a little hard for everyone to calibrate and be on the same page. So I guess both of those tie in really well and are equally important, or maybe if not equally, a 60-40. But that's just my take.
Yeah, I would also say, yeah, I mean, everything, all of the skills are important. Being able to do the research and engineering is obviously very important to like conduct your experiments and do the actual science. But, at the end of the day, you want to do research. I guess the goal of our lab is to do research that's not just incremental, but very impactful and makes an impact on other researchers outside of our lab, and the wider research community. In order to actually do that, we need to spend a lot of time communicating our work well, getting it out there, making sure that other people really understand what we're trying to do and how it can help them. So both of these things are very important.
Yeah, I'm just gonna jump in with this one. So are there opportunities for relocation during the program? No, this is remote first. So typically, because the program is 6 months, there's opportunities to visit the office. As I mentioned, we'll have a whole week where everyone will get together and visit an office. And if you're close to an office, you're very welcome. You should, I think we have two scholars. Well, I guess Arash is in Toronto, and then Akansha, you're close to New York. So when you are close to our office, that's totally fine. But no, we don't support relocation. So I think that answers that one. And then what's your dream for the future of what CFUR, both collaboration technology wise, from Kyle? So I think this year probably gives a good sense of what we're about. And I think John just said it really well, right? So our research agenda is pretty ambitious. Like our goal is to create meaningful contributions that push forward the whole field, and also that create an impact on really open questions. So this requires, our bets for next year will be ambitious, and they'll be really thinking about multiple facets of like how we drive for the field. I mentioned a few, so I won't repeat them, but really the dream for the lab is that we both change how research is done as well as we drive forward research as a whole. Okay, and then let's see, does anyone spot another question?
There's another one here asking if we're focused on early career or career pivots. So it sounds like there might be some people who might be mid-career in a separate field or with separate experience. Would they be considered or eligible for the program?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very much in the spirit of the program. So yeah, definitely if you have experience in another field and be non-machine learning. I will say the first few rounds, one of the main criteria is engineering skill, just because uh, the reality is for the program to the types of questions you'll have to look at, often you have to grapple with large scale engineering. So most of the early screens are technical. But that being said, if you are an engineer and you've only worked on biology problems and you want to gain experience in ML, that is totally an example of what would be super good fit for this program. Or if you have another background, but you have been learning by yourself and you want to then take the plunge into this, I think that's another really good fit for this program. So yeah, there's no requirement that you just have ML.
And there's
Uh,
another one here. I was curious about the platforms and infrastructure provided to the scholars. So what's made available to scholars and what technologies are you working with?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the project. So typically it's, the ease of the requirements of the project. There's projects that have worked directly with all of our internal infrastructure, and those typically are pre-training at scale, for example, or some dynamics where the optimization is at scale. There's also projects which have largely leveraged open weights models, and that infrastructure tends to be a little bit different. Maybe I'll let John and Akansha speak to this, as well as I know John and Akansha, maybe John, you can speak to this because now you're migrating from one infrastructure to another. So you probably have the experience of doing both.
Yeah, so for my project, yes, like Sarah said, I think originally we were using a lot of the open source Hugging Face infrastructure, at least for the things that happened in the RLHF paper. But for instance, the IA-23 paper and some other stuff I'm working on now, we've been more migrating to the Cohere internal infrastructure, which is more based on JAX and using TPUs as well as GPUs as well. And so I guess the requirements for what software stack you use are very dependent on your particular project. Like Sarah mentioned, if you're using a lot of the open weights models, especially weight models that aren't trained by Cohere, then you're probably going to be using a lot more of the open source infrastructure. If you're doing things that are, for instance, very large scale, like pre-training or using Cohere's internal models, you're going to be using more of Cohere's internal infrastructure there.
Yeah, it's a really good one. So what else? What is the take-home challenge? I mentioned that will be released once we identify the first shortlist of applicants after the personal statement and the video. But you can look at our version from last year. So I think Ahmed also shared the version from last year, I think, in the chat, which was really great. So you can get a sense of the difficulty just from that version. It will be obviously it will be completely new, just so we reset the challenge, but you should expect a similar level of difficulty. Yeah, does anyone here have comments about the take home? So Akansha, John, Ayamide, you all did it last year. So what did you have thoughts on the process or tips?
I would say it's overall important to just have very strong fundamentals in both machine learning, but also just software engineering in general. So in terms of tips for studying and preparing for the take-home challenge and the interviews are really understanding the fundamentals that you would learn in any machine learning course that you might take either online or at a university. And then in terms of the actual like engineering and coding experience, I think all of the scholars here mostly work in Python, so having strong Python coding knowledge is definitely going to be very helpful and probably I would say required in order to do well as a scholar and in the technical interview process.
Yeah, I think one quick thing I might want to add is that for the take home, I guess like for some questions there are like concrete answers, but for some others they're a little bit more open-ended. And there's no one right answer. So whatever your observations are, or whatever you run into, whether it's like something anomalous or something very standard, I think you should report everything and have an explanation or hypothesis for why you might think it's going that way. And I think that'd be super helpful. Just like communicating what you do well, that would be great.
So there's two good questions here. What's the, what are the minimum criteria of the take home and how much time is given to submit it? So you'll have a week. So everyone has the same amount of time. There'll be a week to do the take home. And there's typically multiple components. So, the take home for this year is still being written, but it will have components similar to last year. There'll be a debugging session where it's just identifying issues with the code. There'll be a technical session, which, as John said, relies more on ML fundamentals. And then there'll be a take this further section. I would suggest that the take this further, also think about that. So it's optional, but to Akansha's point, this is where you get to show your thinking process. And so I think this is also something to think about, like towards the end of the selection process, when things get extremely competitive and it's really hard, we actually often go back to the take homes to take this further component to try and see the thinking, behind it. So I would give some thought there. Also to the video about how you describe the what interests you. I think this also gives us a lot of signal about how you think about problems. So I would spend some time on both. And then, so Jameson and AKH asked kind of similar questions. So what does this prepare you for? What future roles, where are the alumni of the program doing now? Honestly, a variety. So some have gone on to industry roles. So at Mosaic, Databricks, or at Cohere, some have gone on to PhDs. So we have 2 scholars from last cycle who went on to do PhDs at Princeton and now at University of Washington. So these are both 2 prestigious programs. We have also scholars who decide to continue to do research. So it's really a variety. Like our goal is to support what people do no matter what, regardless of, whether it's industry or whether it's academic. And then Anaruda says, are the technical interviews more technical or behavioral in nature? So I would say, for those who make it past the technical take home, then after that, it's another technical interview. It's an ML fundamentals. And then after that, it's much more about you as a person. It's about your interests. And it's about, what would you like to get out of this program? And that final interview is project match. And we just really want to hear about your interests, how you think about a problem. Does this excite you? And so that's much more about the full holistic. And also in your video, I think that's much more about, just how you think about research, what excites you, what paper got you excited. Someone asked, does it have to be a recent paper? Absolutely not. The other thing I'll say is, I would, there's a lot to gain from a process, even if it's the journey is in the journey itself. So one thing I really encourage is try and take from this process what you would like from it. Like try, if you enjoy certain things about it, or if it sparks something that you like to think about. The other thing I would say is that's why I also suggest going to the community, because I think here's the thing. By the time we get to our final pool, everyone is really exceptionally talented. And so I often think that it's really comes down to a little bit of noise at the end, what happens. And so what I always say is, I really encourage people to reapply. We look really highly on reapplicants. We actually really call it out specifically and note it. We've had successful scholars in this cohort that were reapplicants and successful reapplicants. And so this is the other thing, is that I would treat this as an experience, especially if you think this is the journey you want to have, if you really want to engage with this research, and also connect in our community for that reason, because we also do a lot of research projects in our community, and that will also give you experience in research. And so that's one of the final pieces of advice. And then I'm going to open it up for Akansha, John, and Yomade to give final pieces of advice, since I know we're at time. But that would be what I would say, is that this is a journey in itself, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you and to hearing about, you know, where you want to go, and what is your dream in this field and what you want to work on, and your curiosity about this. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear from it. Akansha, maybe I'll go to you. What's your words of advice, or final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would just say that maybe really brush up on your fundamental skills, because that will help you get through the entire application process. I don't think the application process or the interview process tests anything more than fundamentals. So as long as you really have them down very well, you'd be able to do well and be content with your performance overall. And I think that's what matters at the end of the day. And it's a very fun program. I really encourage everyone to apply. Super, super nice working with everyone here. Everyone is super talented and amazing and very humble as well. So yeah, please do apply, and yeah, all the best.
John, do you want to take it away, and then we'll end with a Yomade?
Yeah, sure. I would say, yeah, in terms of preparation for the application process, studying up on all of your machine learning and engineering fundamentals is very important. I think it's also really good to spend some time thinking about what you would want to get out of the program, because this is something that really shows off in your essays as well as in the interviews. And think about what I guess makes you unique, I think is also a really important thing. And this doesn't mean just unique in terms of what you want to do, but also unique in terms of your background and how that ties into the things you might want to work on and where you want to see your career going as a result of this program. So yeah, best of luck to everybody.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say work on your application really well. I had to send my statement of purpose to a lot of people to check and give feedback. And I had to record my video interview over and over again and pick the best one. So, so I would advise you prepare really, really well. And also for the technical round, yeah, going through the fundamentals is really, really important.
Yeah, and maybe it's worthwhile saying, just specifically fundamentals, we don't test for advanced machine learning or obscure topics. We test for things like, I would really go back to your intro chapters about training, test validation, overfitting, things like that, but know it well and understand the concepts well, because that's really what we're looking for. Do you understand concepts in a true way, not just like memorizing facts, but do you understand what overfitting looks like, complexity, capacity of a model, things like this? And by the way, I'm just saying fundamental topics. There's more, but that's what we mean by that. So just to be more precise, so people can start preparing. But I would just know those topics in a very in a deeper way, so that you can really speak to them and you're comfortable with the concepts. Yeah. Any other thoughts there? Otherwise, I think we're at time. Yeah, go for it, Madeline.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to our super engaged group of attendees today. Wow, great to see your questions and how excited everyone is about this program. It's really heartening to see that people share and agree with our vision, and we really look forward to reviewing your applications. Just 2 weeks to apply. Applications close on August 30th, and we're not able to offer an extension here. So yeah, take some time today to get started. We'll be sharing a recording of this session on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Probably early next week is when we'll have it ready for, so you can look for it there. But otherwise, best regards everyone with your applications, and thank you so much for coming out today. And thanks to our scholars and Sarah for representing the program so well. Have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.